today we're tackling the consultant's dilemma head on, how to stop choosing between easily accessible cash that barely grows and accounts that are high growth but barely accessible. And I'll be showing you the business retirement vault strategy, which eliminates this forced trade-off. And then we'll have a Q&A at the end. So stay tuned for the Q&A at the end. But before we dive in, I want to make it clear that this presentation isn't about high-risk investments or get-rich-quick schemes. Instead, it's about a systematic approach to building wealth that gives you control, protection, and tax advantages that most traditional financial strategies simply don't offer. Someone's investing $25,000 per year for 10 years, and that's totaling $250,000. So this could be a professional who's serious about building wealth. And kind of let's see how this performs in like different vehicles. So let me share a real example that illustrates this problem like perfectly. One of our clients, Karen, she had been in consulting for over 30 years. And after decades of hard work, she finally landed some high-paying contracts and started seeing significant income. Now, like many consultants, um, she was very cautious with her money. She wanted to make sure she had enough liquidity to cover gaps between contracts or meet payroll for her team and handle any unexpected expenses. So she did what seemed safest. She kept her money in checking and savings accounts. And by the time Karen came to me, she had accumulated hundreds of thousands just sitting in bank accounts. That's what a lot of people do without even realizing it. And she thought she was being financially responsible, but in reality, her money was doing virtually nothing for her. And with an average return of just 0.45%, think about that. If you have $1 million sitting in a savings account, you're earning just $4,500 a year in interest. And you scale that down to 100 grand or 10 grand, the point remains the same. Meanwhile, inflation's eroding your purchasing power at 3 to 4% annually. Karen was effectively losing money every year despite her impressive savings. And this is happening to all of you without you even realizing. And this is the dilemma so many people face. You work incredibly hard to earn the money during your active contracts or your jobs, and then the fear of liquidity needs during contract gaps forces you to make decisions that sacrifice your long-term financial growth. And in savings accounts, the average return is just 0.45%. So if you contribute 250,000 over 10 years, that's about $2,083 per month. Your interest earned on that over the whole 10 years is only $5,625. That's just $562 per year in growth if you average it out. Now, I understand why professionals make this choice. You need the liquidity when contracts end or when opportunities arise, but this approach sacrifices your long-term financial future for short-term access. And Karen's situation is all too common. She was a successful consultant by any measure, but her fear of illiquidity was costing her hundreds of thousands in potential growth. And what she needed wasn't an all or nothing approach, but a strategy that could provide both growth and access. So now, on the other end of the spectrum, many people and professionals are told to put their money into what traditional retirement accounts, 401ks, IRAs, TSP accounts, right? The market, right? And on the surface, this seems like a solid approach. But let me tell you about my client, Brian. Brian's 50 years young, and he accumulated over 800,000 in his TSP account after a very successful military career. And on paper, he's done everything right according to traditional advice. But here's the problem. He's not able to touch that TSP account until he's 59 and a half without facing significant penalties. And despite saving diligently for decades, he wants to retire early and enjoy the fruits of his labor, but he can't. He's forced to either live off just his pension and limited personal savings until 59 and a half, or take on another job during what should be his retirement years, or pay a hefty penalties to access his own money. And this is the flaw with traditional retirement accounts, especially for consultants, professionals who value flexibility. Now, let's look at the numbers. With an average return of around 7%, your 250,000 contribute over 10 years grows to about 360,593. That's a gain of over 110,000, which sounds impressive, right? But there's a major problem with this picture. It's all before taxes. You can't access it until retirement without significant penalties. And my client Brian's story is just one example of the inflexibility built into these accounts. For professionals, this is especially problematic. When a contract ends unexpectedly or an opportunity requires capital and your money is locked away, you can't do anything about it, you're missing opportunities. And accessing money in those accounts before 59 and a half. Oh, hold on. One of my lives is having an issue. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that, everybody. Just want to make sure we're still on live. And also keep posting any questions. I'll be there in just a moment. But like I was saying, you have to, before 59 and a half, if you access it, you get a 10% penalty plus ordinary income taxes. And so if you really think about it, you add income tax, that's 30 to 40% with state tax and FICA of your hard earned money that's taken away. Would you be happy with your money being tied up like that? So while traditional retirement accounts seem attractive on the surface, they create a serious liquidity trap. They force you to choose between saving for retirement or having access to your money when you need it. A choice no professional should have to make. Now, here's where the rubber meets the road. Like following the traditional approach with the 360,000 in your 401k or IRA, using the standard 4% withdrawal rule. If you don't know what that is, ask me a question or look it up on Google what the 4% rule is. Very important you understand that. Now, after the 4% rule, you get about $14,424 yearly before tax. After even a modest tax rate, that's roughly $12,925 a year. That's about $1,077 monthly. Think about that for a moment. After 10 years of diligently contributing $2,083 per month, your monthly retirement income is only $1,077. That's about half of what you're putting in each month. Have you ever done this math before? I guarantee you most have not. And the other side is you also face limited control over your money when you need it most. 10% penalties for early withdrawals during contract gaps, required minimum distributions when you reach retirement age, and you also get continued exposure to market volatility. Like these limitations are especially problematic for those with unpredictable income. And it just gets better from there. Now, keep it coming. Thank you for all who have joined. We're still going. I'm looking out for any questions. Just keep that in mind. Just going back to chat, just add any questions you have as I'm running through this. Now, there's another serious issue with the market-based accounts, right? You get the devastating impact of market losses. Like, consider this simple example. You start with $10 in the market, and the market has a bad year and drops 50%. How much do you have left? You only have $5 left, right? Now, the next year, things recovered and the market went up 50%. How much you at now? Most think $10, but no, you're actually only at $7.50. This is the mathematical reality that catches many people by surprise. When you lose money in the market, you need a much bigger gain just to recover, right? Like if you lose 20% of your money, you need a 25% gain just to break even. But God forbid you lose 50% of your money in the market. You need 100% gain. The market has to double just for you to get back to zero. Not profit, zero, where you started. Now, our client Mary, she had about 150,000 in her investment accounts and worked with a full-time advisor who managed her portfolio. Now, Mary rarely communicated with her advisor because she always felt like she was with the right person. And the real problem was Mary only looked at the quarterly or monthly statements showing gains and never examined her overall performance. And when we analyzed her portfolio over the past 5 years, we discovered something shocking. She was actually negative 5% overall. And Mary had no idea that the retirement money she was living off of had actually decreased by 5% over 5 years, despite what would be appeared to be gains in some of her statements. She was focused on the trees while missing the forest. And a lot of people are doing that. And we all saw this play out in 2008. The market crashed 38.5%, then gained 23.5% in 2009. But investors were still significantly underwater. And many people needed years to recover those losses. And when was the last time you looked at your overall performance? Like for most of us, this recovery time is especially problematic. If the market crashes during a gap between contracts when you might need access to your funds, you're forced into a terrible choice. Either sell at a loss or struggle financially while waiting for a recovery. Everything seems nice when the market's going up, but no one talks about when the market's going down. Now, let's look at a different approach that addresses these unique problems. So, here's where things get interesting. What if there was a financial vehicle specifically designed to address the consultant's dilemma? And what if you could participate when the market goes up, but completely avoid the losses when it goes down, while still maintaining access to your money during times of need? That's exactly what specific types of index accounts offer. Now, an index account is linked to the market, but not directly invested in it. This creates a contractual agreement with two crucial features. First, you'll never lose money due to market performance. That's a contractual guarantee. Second, when the market goes up, your money increases with it. The company just takes a little bit off the top for themselves. Now, unlike traditional investments where you're riding the market roller coaster with no safety rails, index accounts give you protection on the downside while still letting you capture gains. Now, this stability is crucial for those who can't afford to see their accumulated wealth disappear during a market downturn. Okay, because what if a market downturn just happens to coincide with a gap between contracts or retirement? Now, let me show you how this works with a real example many of us remember. So, most of you remember the dot com bubble in 2000, right? The market dropped 10.1%, right? Then 2001, down again. Then 2003, down again. 3 straight down years, right? But with an index account, your money stayed exactly where it was at, 0%, no losses. Then in 2003, when the market finally rebounded, it went up 26.4%, right? This specific index account gained 11.2% that year. So when the market drops, your money stays put. But when it rises, you capture a portion of those gains. Now, this is why I tell my clients zero is your hero. Because never losing money is incredibly powerful for professionals who need both growth and stability. So consider the 2008 financial crisis, something most of us remember all too well. The market crashed 38.5%. Some lost entire fortunes that year. Do you know someone that happened to? Because unfortunately, most of us do. But index accounts, they stayed right at zero. Not a single penny lost. Then in 2009, the recovery time, the market began recovering with a 23.5% gain, which was, keep in mind, not enough to get traditional investors back to break even. Remember what we just talked about earlier. Now, index accounts captured returns between 8.88% and 17.5%. Imagine being a professional during that time while others watch their retirement accounts plummet and their fortunes go down to dismal amounts. Those with index accounts maintain their financial foundation. This provided freedom to be selective about opportunities, negotiate better terms, or even take time off if needed. Now, looking at a 20-year historical average across different index accounts tells a compelling story. Some indexes average 7 to 7.3%, others performed even better at 8.1 to 10%, and one delivered at 12% average returns. Now, combining these five indexes, the average return was just 8.88%, average with zero downside risk, and your principal was contractually protected. This is a key advantage most financial advisors never discuss. Now, just keep in mind, right? Historical data does not mean it's going to predict the future, but we can get an idea of what's happening so we can see a perspective, right? Now, yes, of course, you might capture slightly less upside in the very best years, but you never have to recover from losses. You're always moving forward, never backwards. And thank you everybody who has joined. If you have any questions as we're going through this, we're going to have a Q&A at the end. So keep your questions till then, please, and thank you. I guess on the TikTok, we lost the picture. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. People who are watching, let's get back to it. Now, so I want you to think about this. How this transforms your financial planning. No more roller coasters, no more watching the news, worried about your portfolio, no more hoping you don't face a financial challenges during a market crash, no more feeling like you need to be a financial guru. You get a steady, predictable growth pattern that creates real financial confidence when your life direction isn't guaranteed. Now, this is where the business retirement vault strategy delivers on all three L's of wealth building. First is liquidity. You're able to access your money when you need it without penalties. Leverage. You can use your money and make it work in multiple places at the same time through our self banking strategy. Legacy. You're able to create wealth that passes to your future generations and heirs tax free without any probate. Now, while traditional approaches force you to sacrifice at least one of these critical elements, the BRV strategy integrates all three simultaneously. So let's talk about the business retirement vault strategy. And this is where everything we've discussed comes together to create an ideal solution for professionals. Now, the BRV isn't just a financial product, it's a comprehensive wealth building system. And at its core is a specifically designed, max funded, index universal life policy. But the complete strategy encompasses asset integration, tax optimization, and legacy planning tailored specifically to your situation. This isn't a one size fits all program, so you understand. This strategic approach unlocks powerful advantages from the IRS Tax Code 101A, creating three game changing benefits. First, your money grows completely tax free. No taxes on gains, period. Now, for consultants and professionals who are already paying significant self employment tax, this tax advantage is substantial. Second, you can access your money without triggering a tax event. This is crucial during those inevitable gaps between contracts or when you need capital for your life or business. And third, the death benefit passes to your heirs tax free, creating a lasting legacy. But the BRB strategy goes well beyond just the tax advantages. You get zero loss guarantee protection, growth potential from index linked returns, complete liquidity once funded, and total control over your money. And it's an efficient wealth transfer through strategic structuring. Now, what makes BRV completely different from typical financial approaches is our holistic methodology. We analyze your entire financial picture and integrate all components from asset positioning to trust structures to cash flow management. And this comprehensive approach allows you to build accessible wealth and create tax free income streams in years, not decades. And this creates a financial foundation that remains stable regardless of income variability, providing both long term growth and immediate accessibility. We can even integrate your existing retirement accounts and other assets into this strategy, ensuring your money is always working optimally while maintaining the liquidity professionals require. Now, let me show you a real world example that really brings this to life. This is obviously based on hypothetical numbers, just so you understand, but these are based on the historical numbers we were talking about. Now, here's a case study for a 50-year-old who contributes $25,000 a year for 10 years. That's a total of $250,000. The policy is designed to credit at 6.55%. And thank you, everybody who's been joining. We're going to have a Q&A at the end, so hold your questions to the end, but you can type them now, so that way, if anything, I'll get to them at the end. But going back to the policy crediting at 6.55%, that's actually conservative compared to the 8.88% historical average we just saw. Now let's look at what happens after 10 years. They've built over $265,000 in cash value, which is a solid foundation that remains completely accessible. Now at age 62, they can take $29,052 in tax-free income every single year, providing stable income regardless of workloads. And over their lifetime, that adds up to a potential 1.7 million in tax-free income. And that's while taking that income, their cash value doesn't deplete like it does in other accounts. It actually grows to 508,000 by age 70. So let's break this down year by year. So by year 10, they got 265,000 cash. Though they're not taking income yet, keep that in mind. Now, 2 years later, they start taking income, and by year 20, their cash values has grown to $508,531 while they were taking out $29,052 annual income. And by year 40, their cash value has increased to $2.2 million while still taking the same 29,000 every single year. This creates something that traditional financial vehicles can't. Predictable, tax-free income that isn't dependent on having active work. Plus, access to capital during your working years. Think about what that means. 250,000 contributed over 10 years generates nearly $30,000 of annual tax-free income for decades, while the cash value continues to grow instead of depleting. That's the power of becoming your own bank. Now I want to share what I consider the most powerful feature of the BRV strategy, the concept of the self-banking system, also known as becoming your own bank. This is what really sets this approach apart and addresses the unique challenges of consulting income. Let me show you exactly how this works using our example earlier of the 265,000 year BRV after the first 10 years. It's a three-step process that changes everything about how your money works for you. First, you can access your money when you need it. You take out what's called an index loan for the 265,000. You can take less but let's just say in this example you took it all. Now the loan rate is about 3.2%. That's roughly $8,500 per year. Now, here's the thing. If that was a traditional account, you got nothing left, the account's closed out, right? Here's the game changer. Your money still grows inside the policy. That original 265,000 continues growing at around 6.5%, generating about $17,000 in annual tax-free growth. The bottom line, you're earning $17,000 while paying $8,500 and netting roughly $8,500 annually. And that's all while you're using your 265,000 elsewhere. And that's at a 6% return average. Now keep that in mind. These returns can be higher or lower depending on the years, depending on the indexes you're in. But you get to use your money for whatever you need, covering expenses during contract gaps, investing in your business, handling personal financial needs, while that same money continues growing inside the policy. Think about what that means. That you can use your money and have it still growing. Now think about this real life example. A 50-year-old consultant builds up 265,000 after 10 years. They can take up to about $29,000 per year tax-free in income. Their account value grows to over $500,000 by age 70. And over their lifetime, that could amount to $1.7 million over that in tax-free income. This solves the impossible choice between growth and access. You're not just earning a return. You're creating a financial system that works for you through both active contract periods and those inevitable gaps. Now, let's compare the business retirement vault strategy to traditional 401k IRA approaches, right? Now, this is where differences really become clear for professionals. Both approaches, you start with the same $250,000 over 10 years. But what happens next is dramatically different. After 10 years, the traditional approach shows you 360,000, which looks better at first glance, right? Now, the BRV approach shows you about 265,000, which seems smaller initially. But when we look at the income, the traditional approach gives you around $13,000 per year after taxes. Now, the BRV gives you around $29,000 per year completely tax free. That's more than double the income. Think about that. And here's what happens over time. With traditional approaches, your account value decreases every year as you take withdrawals. With the BRV, your account value actually increases to over $500,000 by age 70, even while you're taking income. And for consultants and professionals specifically, the traditional approach, you're exposed to the market. Like if the market crashes, which could potentially happen during your contract gaps or when you need capital for a business venture, you're stuck. While the BRV approach, you have a zero loss protection. So regardless of the market conditions, you never have to worry about losing money because of the market. Now, when it comes to accessing your money, traditional approaches, you got limited access, you got penalties, you got required minimum distributions, and it's all taxed and taxed and taxed, right? Now, the BRV approach, you have control. It's your money. Use it when contracts end or opportunities arise. And this is why professionals like yourselves are diversifying into these strategies. Now, let me share a real quick, real life example that shows the power of the strategy specifically for consultants. So my client, Karen, yeah, she's a consultant who completely focused on growing her business with almost no retirement planning. She had some money in an IRA, but no real strategy for handling the inconsistent income that came with her consulting work. Now, when we showed her how much of her retirement savings would be lost to taxes and how inaccessible her money would be during contract gaps, she was stunned. She was, that's to say the least. This was something her previous financial advisor had never explained. And when we helped her implement the business retirement vault just 3 years later, it proved its value in a way that traditional accounts never could. When her son needed $7,000 to pay off his car during a period when she was at the end of one of her major contracts, and if you know how it is at the end, you're stressing for the next one. Now, she was able to borrow the money from her policy tax free in less than a week, and the loan rate was just 3.2%. And remarkably, that 7,000 she borrowed continued growing inside her policy as if she never touched it. This gave her incredible peace of mind knowing she could help her family without disrupting her long-term financial strategy. She's now repaying the loan on her own terms with no fixed schedules while building significant tax-free wealth for her future. And most importantly, she's no longer stressed about contract gaps because she knows she has a financial foundation that works regardless of her consulting schedule. This is a business retirement vault in action, providing both immediate liquidity when life happens and long term financial security without compromising everything. Now, to summarize what we covered, the business retirement vault delivers on all three L's of wealth and has a unique combination of benefits. You get protection from market losses during what could be contract gaps, retirement times, or just, hey, bad times for your life. You get a competitive growth potential, historical averages of 6 to 8%. And you get tax free growth and access. You get the ability to become your own bank. You also get long term tax free income that you can build out. You get liquidity when you need it most. And unlike traditional retirement accounts, this strategy gives you complete control over your money regardless of your contract status. And you get protection from market volatility and access to your capital when you need it without having to be a certain age. And you also get substantial tax advantages. If you believe taxes are going to be higher in the future, these tax advantages just get bigger and bigger from there. And you get the ability to build true generational wealth that you can actually pass down to your family without having to deal with probate and fighting the courts. Now that you understand how the business retirement vault works for professionals like yourself, let me share why scheduling a strategy session today is critical if this approach interests you. So, the reality is most people miss is that qualification for this strategy isn't guaranteed. You can't, not everybody can get this. This is why a lot of people don't have it. They can't qualify for this. These companies backing these policies are highly selective. It's precisely why they can offer guaranteed protection we've discussed, is because their strict underwriting standards are why you will never lose money due to market performance. It's the same reason why these companies have been in business for hundreds of years. Now, beyond the health considerations, there's also the hidden costs of waiting. Like, listen to me for a second. For every $100,000 you have sitting idle in low interest accounts, you're potentially leaving $6,000 to $15,000 on the table annually. That compounds year after year, and that money can never be recovered. It's not just about what you're not doing, it's about where you're leaving your money. Now, if you're interested in seeing how this could work for your specific situation, your next step is scheduling a complimentary strategy session. During the personalized consultation, we'll analyze your current financial setup and identify optimization opportunities, and we'll determine if you meet the qualification criteria for the strategy. And we'll create a custom structure that maximizes your specific situation and your specific needs. And we'll show you exactly how the numbers works for your goals and give you clear, honest assessment, even if it means telling you this isn't the right fit. Now, what makes this different from typical financial consultations is one, I'm not looking to simply sell products. As I mentioned earlier, I deliberately maintain a small client base because proper implementation requires ongoing guidance and customization. You might see others who are trying to sell you something one and done, one appointment. No, we take our time. We make sure that this makes sense for each of our clients. And each structure needs to be precisely calibrated to avoid just becoming another underperforming asset like a lot of people have. Due to the in-depth analysis and customization involved. Now, to reserve your complimentary strategy session, click the link that will appear in the chat in the replay, or you can just text me BRV to 321 282 6801. Just text BRV to 321 282 6801. Also, you can go to businessretirementvault.com/book now, and we can schedule a consultation. You will have to fill out some qualification questions. It will just be some base level questions. That way, we can make sure that we can even help you. Now, remember, even if you ultimately decide this strategy is not for you, you'll walk away with clarity about your options and specific recommendations for your situation. And the consultation itself delivers value regardless of what you decide.